Hi, I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have our NFL Week 15 prediction episode. We are getting so close to the end of the year. Each week it just gets a little more surreal that we're already this close to the end of the year and this close to the playoffs. But before we jump into our predictions for this week, just a quick update on our head-to-head pick'em game. For the first time in literally, I think like 4 or 5 weeks, I had the most points. Slowly but surely turning it around. But I dropped a total of 13 points while Callan only dropped 11. So that's putting us at a total of me with 142 and Callan with 151. I bring it back down to single digits, but literally just barely at only 9 points now. So I got a lot of ground to make up, but we got 4 more weeks of picks, concluding this week, and they're all full slate schedules. They're all going to have all 16 games.
16 games,
So
32 teams.
if I have a chance to make up, it is right here, right now. Starting with Week 15, Thursday Night Football of the Los Angeles Chargers heading to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. And we start, as we always do on Thursday Night Football, by agreeing we are both taking Aiden O'Connell over Easton Stick or Max Duggan. Because for the second week in a row, we just have another horrific quarterback matchup on Thursday Night Football. Last week, we got this spectacle of Bailey Zappi versus Mitchell Trubisky. This week, we're going to get either the Chargers with Max Duggan or Easton Stick, whoever they decide to start, versus the long-running starter there in Vegas of Aiden O'Connell. So I'd love to see Max Duggan, if we're being dead honest. A little bit of a rookie showdown, Purdue versus TCU. It'd be pretty cool to see there. But I got the Raiders in this one because the Chargers have just had such a horrific season already. I mean, every year they're just like the Vikings. People are thinking this is their year. They go out, they get Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator. It's like, oh, this is the key. This is where it's happening. But then through multiple heartbreaking losses, through multiple smaller and major injuries to their quarterback and heart of the team, Justin Herbert, their defense has never really been able to get it together. J.C. Jackson had his little fit that seemed to throw the defense off more than anything at about midseason. It's just been tough for the Chargers, and the Raiders haven't looked great either, but they've just looked a little more consistent. So I think they pick up a divisional win here.
Yeah, we'll have to see if the Raiders can score some points this week. That will be the key
help
to winning the game for the Raiders, is for them to score points this week. They have consistently scored 0 over 4 quarters, so hopefully they can break that consistency. But I like the Raiders in this one because they were shut out last week, and usually in NFL world, when one shutout happens, you come out and you score a decent amount of points the next week. You kind of get it together, and it being a Thursday game, they can get this taste of scoreless, of being shut out of their mouth real quick. So, I think that the Chargers are going to go with Easton Stick over Max Duggan, but Duggan is going to be the backup. So it'll be interesting to see if Stick gets hurt, if Duggan goes in, and how he performs. Easton Stick did get a little bit of playing time last week.
Actually looked decent.
When Herbert got hurt, he went out early in the game, so he was able to perform like a backup quarterback. The Chargers still have a lot of weapons with Keenan Allen, and they activated Josh Palmer, and Austin Eckler obviously still there and still chugging away. So, the Chargers can definitely use their weapons. I think if they win, it'll be up to Austin Eckler and that running game. But I don't see that getting going against that Raiders defensive front, and the Raiders pulling out a victory here on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, Easton Stick actually did look good. He led their only touchdown drive, so that was good to see. And the fact that you said they consistently scored 0 for 4 quarters, I love it, because that's exactly, they consistently did nothing on offense. That is very accurate. Speaking of doing nothing on offense, the other team that did nothing on offense against the Raiders, we got the Vikings on Saturday football, Saturday at noon. heading to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. And we split here. I have the Vikings in this one, and Callan has the Bengals.
I like the Bengals and Jake Browning, who seems to have really clicked with Jamar Chase. And it's pretty easy to click with Jamar Chase, not going to lie. But, he's quite the dynamic receiver. So I would like to see him get a little bit better of a connection with T. Higgins going. It seems like they're kind of phasing T. Higgins out of their offense. He's going to be a free agent next year. So it's interesting that they're kind of preemptively phasing him out because he has not had very good numbers this year. In fact, he's had career lows in catches, receptions, catches, receiving yards, and touchdowns so far. So I do like the Bengals in this one. Even though that Vikings defense has been really good, they haven't played against anyone like Jamar Chase yet. And I think Jamar Chase is able to break that defense, and that the Bengals are able to score points against the Vikings, and more than 3 points, enough to beat them this week, hopefully.
More than 3 is about all you really need. So. But yeah, interesting tidbit about T. Higgins there, because he's also coming up on a contract year. So it'll be interesting to see how they end up using him at the later half of this year now. But the Bengals have really relied on the screen game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing when you got a young, lesser experienced backup quarterback playing, and playmakers like Chase Brown, the rookie out of Illinois, who we got to see a bunch of as Iowa fans watching Big Ten football, and man, was he good at Illinois.
He single-handedly beat the Hawkeyes.
Not surprised at all that he's doing well in the NFL. And then, of course, that's not even overlooking Joe Mixon at the other running back, Jamar Chase. But the Vikings are really good against the screen game this year. The whole read and react, see it and hit it, they've been killing it in that area of defense. So when that gets taken away and they can't really rely on that screen game as much, and Browning's actually forced to kind of beat him with his arm and have to push it downfield, I'll be interested to see how he does against a pretty damn solid Vikings secondary this year. But you already hit the nail on the head. The real question is, are we going to score the points? We officially announced that we're going to be starting Nick Mullins as quarterback on Saturday, who did score our only points of the game last week. Granted, that being 3 points, but he was the one to actually lead the drive to score them. Maybe now that he has a week of practice as a true starter, instead of splitting reps with Dobbs, he can put it together a little more. I don't think we'll have Justin Jefferson, which is really a bummer, because I believe this would be the first time that it was Jefferson versus Chase since they were together at LSU. So that'd have been really cool to see, but injuries happen. I'm sure Jefferson will at least be on the sidelines, so he'll still get to say hi, hang out before and after the game. But I'm a little nervous taking the Vikings in this one, as I usually am week in and week out. But nonetheless, I'm sticking with them, and I think that we can steal one in Cincinnati. Next up, we have not the Saturday afternoon game, but the Saturday night game of the Denver Broncos heading to Detroit to take on the Lions. And I swear to God, we don't do it on purpose. We make these picks completely separate. But again, this season, second week in a row, we both pick the Broncos, and we both pick them as our upset. We pick the same upset again because it's even more consistent than us picking the same Thursday night team as Thursday night and the upset. They just go hand in hand anymore. But I got the Broncos in this one because these are kind of teams heading in two opposite directions right now. The Lions came out hot, to say the least, but it seems like teams are starting to kind of figure them out. They take a huge divisional loss to the Bears last week, and the Bears were able to shut them down on defense, which you get shut down by the Bears defense. That is an oof, to say the least.
Something's wrong.
I can say that as somebody who was at the game in which my team got shut down by the Bears defense. So not talking shit on the Lions, just saying it's rough. But then on the other side of that coin, you got the Denver Broncos, who, after 2 seasons of disappointment, really seem to finally be figuring it out with Russell Wilson at the helm. So you just got teams going in opposite directions here. Detroit does have the Motor City home field advantage, but nonetheless, give me Russell Wilson, give me the Broncos.
Yeah, I like the Broncos in this one. Russell Wilson has really turned it around, and he's really got a connection going with Courtland Sutton, who continues to make outstanding plays and catches weekly, it seems. So I got him in line to at least make one amazing catch and have a good amount of receiving yards this week. He's going to end up being their number one receiver. Denver, or Cortland Sutton is for Denver.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but for the Lions, really their problem is that they've been turning the ball over a lot of fumbles. They've been putting it on the ground a lot, and I believe Jared Goff has led the league in turnovers over the past 3 weeks now. So that is just not good for the Lions, and that's what happens. I like the Broncos here because I need Detroit to lose.
Don't we all?
We both need Detroit to lose, and then we'll settle it head to head. But first we need Detroit to lose and bring them back down to the pack, and hopefully put that NFC North race back up for grabs.
Yeah, you want to talk about phasing out receivers. Jerry Jeudy is slowly but surely disappearing from that Denver offense, and Cortland Sutton is stepping up into his place.
Yes.
Now, next up, speaking of the Packers, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading to the frozen tundra to take on Green Bay and the Packers, and we agree again. We both have the Packers in this one. This one was really a toss-up for me, and I say it more than I should, but it's another one where it was almost a coin flip. So I just take the home field advantage. I actually originally had put the Bucs as my pick right here, but then finally I looped back around. I put the Packers. They had a rough game last week and lost to it, and what is my opinion a not very good team. And the Giants, they're on a 4-game winning streak, so maybe they're better than I give them credit for. But I think that they kind of get it together. It's a little bit of a wake-up slap for them losing to DeVito and the Giants. So they put it together in this one, and they kind of beat up on Baker Mayfield in a very, very inconsistent Buccaneers team who started hot, lost it midseason, and is now heating back up.
Yeah, I like Green Bay in this one. They come home after a disappointing trip to New York to face, and like you said, a very inconsistent Buccaneers team who seems to be on highs and lows every other week. But one thing I like in the favor of the Packers this week is that the Buccaneers do not have a very strong running game. And because of that, I believe that we are able to shut down their running game and force them to pass the ball. And even though they do have dynamic receivers in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, the Packers defense is, I believe, 7th in the league against the pass. So they're one of the top secondary units still in the NFL, minus all that trouble in the running game. And as long as Baker Mayfield doesn't just get some magic going, he's somebody who can take over games and win them. But he hasn't done that in a while, and he's kind of losing that kind of ability. But I believe he could still do it, and I hope that he doesn't. But one big thing for the Packers is that I believe this is the week that Aaron Jones comes back from his MCL injury. He almost played against the Giants, and I'm kind of glad he didn't because that's a rough field there in the Meadowlands, and I don't want him to injure that knee anymore. We almost snuck away with a victory, but nonetheless, I think he comes back this week on this home field, the home turf. You know, he's a little more used to it, a little bit more comfortable. And I believe that he has a big game in his return and leads the Packers to a victory over the Buccaneers.
He's not quite as an elite of a running back as Saquon Barkley or Tommy DeVito, who actually led the Giants in rushing last week. So maybe he's the real elite running back. But keep an eye out on Rachaad White, who has been getting used a lot more in that offense and has been taking advantages of each of his opportunity for the Bucs there. So now moving way down the list, we're going to jump to our final 3 games in which, hint, hint, we agree on all of them, again, as we usually do. But starting off with our game of the week on Sunday afternoon, we have the Dallas Cowboys heading to Buffalo to take on the Bills, and we agree here. We both have the Bills in this one. The Cowboys came off of a huge win last week going against the Philadelphia Eagles. It gave them the top of that division now and knocked the Eagles out of first place in the conference. So huge swing right there for the Cowboys. And I think they're going to be on a little bit of like a celebration high. They're going to be a little too far up on their high horse. And they're going against a team here who, as I talked about it last week, really has their back against the wall all of a sudden. They're looking at this and they're realizing that playoffs are not a guaranteed there in a very close, tough AFC. So they're really showing up. They're starting to play better. And I think they're going to sneak up on these Cowboys and hit them really hard and end up picking up a little bit of an upset win. A couple years ago, it wouldn't be an upset at all. But now, with the way the Bills have played and the Cowboys have played, I think it's more of an upset.
Mhm.
But nonetheless, I see a win here for Buffalo.
Yeah, I like a win for Buffalo too. I think they're on a roll right now. They're coming off of a lot of momentum off of that Chiefs victory where they finally shut down Patrick Mahomes and was able to turn him into a temper tantrum throwing baby. So that's interesting. But, the Bills did that all by themselves. So, hats off to them. I think, like I said, they're going to really roll off of that victory. Josh Allen is starting to re-enter the MVP conversation, and I think that if he continues to play the way he did against Kansas City, he will be back in that MVP conversation, and with a big upset of Dallas here in Buffalo.
Yeah, that would definitely put him up those rankings.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, moving on to our two primetime games, starting with Sunday Night Football, we have the Baltimore Ravens heading to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. And we not only agree here on the Ravens, but I also personally have the Ravens as my lock. Trevor Lawrence did play last week, but he was so obviously not 100%.
Mm-hmm.
He just wasn't himself, and I don't think he's magically going to be 100% this week either. Those ankle injuries, no matter which position you play, whether you're a running back and receiver cutting every play or a lineman or a quarterback, they just get to you. Your ankles are your base. You're going to step on them every play no matter what you do.
Yep.
So you're just clearly not 100% when you have any sort of an ankle injury. And that's not even mentioning that the Ravens are on a complete tear right now. Every time a team even plays well and gets close to them, they just end it on crazy ways like a punt return in overtime. They're just finding ways to win week in and week out. They just got a hold of that first spot in the AFC now, which is awesome for them. And I think that they're not going to get on their high horse, like I said, with the Cowboys. I think that they're going to be a little smarter with it. I think they're going to realize this AFC is really competitive, and they're going to hold on to it here with a win against Jacksonville.
Yeah, I like the Ravens here. They've kind of flown under the radar a little bit. No one really talks about them as a top team, but like you said, they're the number one seed in the AFC right now. So obviously they are one of the top teams, and I believe that they're going to show it here with a strong showing against Jacksonville, who had a chance to retake that top seed that we were talking about, but was faltered against Cincinnati, and now last week against who did they play last week?
Who?
The Jags.
The Jags, the Browns.
The Browns. Yep.
They lost to Joe Flacco.
They lost to Joe Flacco. So two stunning losses for the Jaguars has knocked them back down into the AFC South conversation, where they have to hold on to that lead with the Texans and Colts staring them down.
Oh, and Titans.
And Titans now after their upset victory of the Dolphins. So the Jags almost kind of need to win this. They're starting to be their backup against the wall, but I think Baltimore is just way too tough. And Lamar Jackson has also entered the MVP conversation with his play. And I think that the Baltimore Ravens just have too many weapons for the Jaguars to overcome this week.
Yeah, it's ironic. The Ravens kind of remind me of the AFC Cowboys a little bit, where they are an extremely good team. But one of those teams that just seem to fall apart sometimes and kind of take silly losses. So we'll see if we maybe see one of those here. So now, finally, with the Monday Night Football game, we have the Philadelphia Eagles heading to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. And as I mentioned earlier, we agree on all of these. We both have the Eagles in this one.
Mm-hmm.
As I just mentioned a second ago with the Cowboys, they took the Eagles out. The Eagles are no longer the first seed, and I don't even believe they have the NFC East anymore.
No,
I'm not positive on that, but so they move all the way to the fifth seed now. And I think that's going to light a fire under their ass.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they've been a little overrated all season. I think they've kind of beat up on some lesser teams and kind of fell apart when they got against the better teams. And this is a middle of the pack team with the Seahawks. I'm definitely not going to call them a lesser team, but I don't really know if I want to go straight to calling them a better team either. But
Right.
it's going to be in Seattle. It's going to be tough to go into that 12-man stadium and pick up a win there at CenturyLink. But nonetheless, I think the Eagles kind of realize that they do need a win here to get themselves back on track, and they do what they can to get it.
Yeah, I think that the Eagles get a good victory here. Seattle's just they're kind of falling apart. Geno Smith hurt his groin in practice, and he's questionable to play. Drew Lock came in last week, and he did not look good against that San Francisco defense. Not many do, but they obviously have a better chance with Geno. There's just no chemistry with Drew Lock and DK Metcalf, and Metcalf showed his frustration with that last week also by having one of his worst games of the year. So I think that continues if Drew Lock is the starter for Seattle, which is trending that way. They're leaving it questionable for Geno and a game time decision, which is the same as last week. But with those groin injuries, they're hard to tell with those soft tissue muscles. So it'll be interesting to see which quarterback is out there for Seattle. But I think nonetheless, no matter who it is, Philadelphia walks away with a victory this week.
Yeah, I used to be a big Drew Lock fan, but if you can't get it done with those weapons and that pretty damn pretty damn decent offensive line there in Seattle, I just don't know if I can support you much longer. That's a tough one. But those are our predictions for some of the games in the Week 15 of the 2023 NFL season. Thank you all so much for watching this week of episodes. Make sure you stay tuned in until next week when we talk about Week 16. But until then, don't forget
to eat the W.